everyone, my name is Rebecca and welcome to my channel. Today I received a request to do a tutorial on how to create depth in a portrait or drawing so it doesn't appear to be flat or disoriented. So in my opinion, the best way to do this is by using gradation, which is this scale here is an example of gradation. So I have an example for you right here on what gradation does in adding variations to shadows. As you can see, the top sphere is just one solid shade. There's no gradations to make it look more 3D, so it's just one solid flat shade. Compared to the bottom sphere, where you can see how I used the gradation scale to create more depth and it looks more 3D. So I'm not an art teacher, but in my opinion, that's the best way to create depth in your drawings. So I have a face here that I'm going to use as an example of how to create gradations in your drawings. As you can see, the shading on this portrait is very similar to the top figure, which is just one solid shade. There's no variations, there's no dark shadows to light shadows, it's just one solid shadow. So what I'm going to be using to blend the shadows is a paintbrush and a number 2 mechanical pencil is pretty much the main pencil that I'm going to be using. Also, an easy way to get the darkness in your portrait is by using different types of pencils. I have a 2B pencil and a 4B pencil that I will be using today. Alright, so let's start making this a little more realistic. So what I would do first, I'm going to start with the shadows on the forehead. I'm just going to take my pencil and just kind of go over. And I'm going to go around the face to get that darkness in first. Also, I think it's a lot easier to think of drawing more like sculpting, because you're pretty much sculpting a face. Because in reality, there's no lines, it's all light and shadow, so. Just gonna give this a blend. And the lighting in this portrait is pretty much, from what I could tell, just normal front lighting. So there's going to be a lot of shadows around the face and these little creases where the eye sockets are. Alright. So for the eyeballs, one thing you definitely always want to add shading to is the actual white part of the eye itself, because it's not ever just pure white, so you always want to add some shadows in here. And then the tear ducts, I'm going to shade this in a little bit. I'm going to leave spots for little highlights in the tear ducts, because there's always highlights in there. I'm also going to do the iris of the eye. I'm going to shade this in a little bit. I'm going to use a little bit of texture, which I'm going to go between little dark areas and light areas. If you could tell, I don't know if you could tell what I'm doing. Okay. Alright, so now you can see the crease of the eye is pretty much just one solid shade, which it's definitely not one solid shade. So you want to add, it gets a little darker closer to the crease. So you want to shade in here a little darker. And I'm not really going to the other pencils yet. I'm just kind of keeping my number 2 pencil. I'm just trying to get those different gradations and variations in first. I'm trying to lay down some base shadows before I determine what I want my darkest shadows to be. I'm also going around the sides of the face. Alright. Okay, so this is the tear duct, and then you have the waterline. I'm not sure if that's really what that's called there, but just makeup terms. But you have the waterline right here, so it's going to stay pretty white, and underneath of the waterline you're going to have some shadows, because underneath your eye it kind of goes in a little bit. So you just want to portray that by shading under the eye. And then along the nose bridge, or the sides of the nose. So the lightest parts of the eye generally are the eyelid and the tear duct. Not the tear duct, I'm sorry, the waterline. Alright, so we're creating a little bit of a gradation along the sides of the nose. It's going to start off darker in here, and it's going to slowly get lighter as you go out. That would be probably one of your first major gradations that you're going to make. And also just adding darker shadows on top of your lighter shadows in certain places will kind of naturally sort of create a gradation to your drawings. So we're just going around the side of the nose. Up under the brow, because the nose extends to the brow, so you want to make sure you get under here nice and shaded dark. Not too dark though. Then I'm going to start with the other eye. So it's going to get darker back toward where the hair is. And then darken up ends where the crease is. I'm keeping the lid pretty, although there are some shadows right here. Pretty light. And then shadows underneath the eye. So again, I'm going to keep the waterline pretty light. I'm going underneath of it, and I'm darkening up right underneath this little waterline. Even probably darken it, the lower lash line a little. If you're a girl, you probably know this like naturally. It's like highlighting and contouring. That's actually a really good way to think of it, is shading like highlighting and contouring. Alrighty. So what I'm pretty much doing just getting the shadows around the face. And I'm just kind of going over like the first, just one layer of shadows with just a number 2 pencil that I just kind of threw down. I didn't really try to make anything like sculpted. I just kind of blended it in with a brush and just kind of left it. I didn't actually figure out where my really dark areas and my really light areas were. I hope this lighting isn't too bad. This would be considered your Cupid's bow. So naturally it goes in a little bit right in here in the center. So we're just going to darken the center. And then there's a lot of shadows around the tip of the nose with this portrait. And then around the nostrils it gets pretty dark. And also with the nose, there's the nostrils, like as the nostrils go underneath, or yeah, they go underneath right here, they get a little darker. So I guess underneath your nose where they curve around. Shading on top of the nose. There's also a little highlight on top of the nose. So we're just gonna shade right here a bit. Alright, a little bit on the tip. Alright, so I'm gonna actually make behind the nose a little darker so the nose itself actually stands out a little bit more. Again, you want to like keep in mind the curvatures of the face, like where the face would attract light and where the face would naturally kind of sink in a little bit. That would be like your darker areas. Like I said, it kind of goes back to like the highlighting and contouring. So like the nose is more, it sticks out a lot more, so you want like the top part of the nose to be more light and back in these areas to be darker, just so it gives the illusion that your nose is like more prominent and like sticking out. So there's also a couple shadows in between the brows. And I'm not really worried about blending it in yet because I'm probably going to go back and just smooth it all down, and then once I figure out where I want my dark areas to be, I'm probably going to go in with either a 4B or 2B pencil, depending on what I want to do. So I'm going to do, also, since this is the Cupid's bow, it gets a lot darker in here, and then on the sides of the Cupid's bow, it sticks out, it's more prominent, so you want to have more shadows on the side to kind of suggest this. But there's a Cupid's bow there. And also, there's highlights on around the lips. So you don't want to bring the shadows all the way down to the lips. You kind of want the shadows to sort of go around, or not the shadows, the highlight to go around this part. You don't want it to be too dark around here because this part's pretty light. Alright, so I think the next part I'm going to start shading in is underneath is the chin area. So underneath right here where the chin and the lip meet, it gets not super dark but fairly dark. So I want to, there's a pretty decent indentation around here, so I'm just gonna darken underneath here, and around the sides of the mouth right here and right here there typically tends to be some shadows, so I'm gonna add those in. It also kind of depends where your lighting is. Like this face is pretty easy, like the lighting's like right in front of you, so all the highlights are going to be here, the center of the forehead, the cheeks, chin, so. I'm just going to go in. Pretty much just sculpting. Like you literally just gotta think of the curves of the face and just try to create those with your shadows. And like what I see people that like just started shading, like they don't actually do that. They just kind of put one flat shade in. I think I've repeated myself several times here, but they just kind of, they don't think of the actual figure. Like I think that's why the example of the sphere is so good, because you can actually sort of see how the shading is like making it look more round, like a 3D figure. It's not just so, you know, one flat shade. And that's kind of what you gotta do with everything. You just gotta think, where are my curves like in the face? And I think it'd be good to just like stand in a mirror and just kind of look at like where the shadows naturally hit your face. And just kind of observe it, because it's pretty much like what makes up reality is just light and shadow. There's no outlines to anything in real life, because it's like a cartoon. Alright. So obviously the corners of the mouth are going to be your darkest areas. Then the corners of the bottom lip you're going to make a little darker. And then underneath the opening of the mouth, right in here is going to be a little darker because your top lip's going to be casting a shadow on your lower lip. So this whole area right in here is, under here is going to be like your darker areas along with the corners. So, I mean, since this is kind of just me mapping out where I want my shadows to be, I'm not going to go too crazy yet. I'm literally just kind of trying to figure out where I want them to be. On the sides of the mouth, I'm going to go a little darker. Alright, so I think that's probably all I'm going to do for the mouth. I'm just trying to do basic shadows just for the sake of this like little example. Alright, so also the neck area is definitely going to be probably one of your darkest areas because it's, you know, your face is casting shadows over your neck, and you also want to, like, you know, receive the neck a lot, so. I'm gonna make this pretty dark. It's probably one of the darkest areas in the whole drawing. Alright, and then we got underneath the neck pretty shaded in. So I'm looking at the portrait and kind of noticing I need more shadows kind of on the sides here, sort of going in. So right in here, maybe down here I might add some more shadows just so these like these cheekbones kind of pop a little bit. And then maybe right in here I might add some more shadows. So let's start here first. I'm going to definitely darken this up a little bit because there's pretty prominent cheekbones, so it's probably going to shade the lower jaw a little bit more. I think I'm going to do same with this side, but there's also quite a bit of shadows on top of this, where this cheekbone is, or the lower half of this cheekbone. So I'm going to shade that in. Also, the lower half of the cheek, kind of upper lip area, there's a lot more shadows up here. And on the other side. I'm going to make around the nose a little bit darker. Then make this a little bit darker. And then I'm going to bring in the shadows on this eye in a little bit more because I'm looking at the figure and it's a little too white right here, so I'm just going to add those in. And there's a lot of different ways to like make shadows, like there's cross-hatching and like, I don't know, it's pretty much just stylized whatever you want to do, but I personally just kind of lay the pencil on its side and just make little back and forth motions. I feel like it's a lot smoother, so that's why I prefer to do it this way. So I'm gonna do it again on this side. So I'm kind of making a little C shape on the end of the eyes. This is sort of like exaggerate right here, sort of where it sucks in, because I'm noticing it's a lot more shaded right here. And then to sort of balance out the darkness on the lower eyeball, I'm gonna, or the bottom of the eyeball, I'm gonna do a darker crease and more shadows on top, just so it's more balanced out, so it's not so dark heavy on the lower side. It's pretty scratchy right now, but I'm gonna blend it out here in a little bit so it's a little less crazy looking. Alright, so I think compared to how you can already tell that it's not as flat. There's a lot more depth and dimension. I pretty much just went in and added a lot more shadows on top of the shadows I had, and, you know, darkened some places. So the main places I darkened up were on the side, like mostly around the face, but like on the, right in here, on the top part of the forehead, right in here, where around the eye socket where that naturally sucks in. So I darkened up shadows here, here, under here, also in like the inner corner part, the crease, under the eye, around the face, I did the sides of the nose, underneath the nose. I added shadows in the Cupid's bow. I shaded the bottom part of the jaw, or the lower cheek area. Then the lips, I did the corners, and underneath the top lip. And then right under here, I added some shadows, and then I added a lot of more shadows underneath the neck, so that naturally be your darkest spot. So next, I'm taking my paintbrush, and I'm just gonna smudge everything around. Alright, so now I'm just gonna take my little paintbrush, and I'm gonna smudge all my shading marks in. I'm not going to get too crazy. I don't want it to be too blended. I just want it to be blended enough to where it looks smooth. So I'm just kind of doing small circular motions over where I just put down the pencil. And I'm not really too worried about like making it super perfect. Like if I see pencil lines that aren't blended out, like, you know, it doesn't really bug me too much. Just kind of makes it look more like a rough or like organic looking drawing, so it's okay with me. I think just for the sake of time, I'm also going to kind of rush this blending process a little bit. Alright, so pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my 2B pencil, and I'm just kind of going to go where I want. I'm not going to do a lot of this. I'm just kind of going to smudge some of it in where I want my darkest areas to be, which would be like the sides of the face. And doing this will kind of naturally sort of create your gradation. Yeah, doing this kind of naturally creates your gradation, because you're starting out with like your first lighter layer of shadows, and you're sort of layering on top like your darker shadows, so it kind of naturally does it for you. So in the inner corner of the eye, the upper part, on the sides of the eye, a little bit on the side of the nose, not on the side of the nose, not too crazy. Just like around the nostrils and under the nostrils. And then I'm gonna darken right in here a little bit. Maybe a tiny bit around the Cupid's bow, not too crazy though. And a little bit where the tip of the nose is. Okay, so I think next I'm going to darken where the mouth opens up a little bit. It's kind of driving me nuts. Alright, so same spots where we kind of already put in, we just don't want to we don't want to go crazy since it's a darker pencil. We just kind of want to put the darker pencil like closest to the mouth. You don't want to go all the way. You don't want to cover up everywhere where you put the shadows, because you're trying to make that little gradation. So underneath the lip where it meets the chin. And then I think I'm just going to go under the neck. And these are going to be like our darker shadows. Might even go as far as a 4B pencil for underneath the neck. I think I'm gonna wait for the end for that. Alrighty, so save it a little bit. Alright, I'm gonna darken the upper lash line. That's typically one part in the eye that seems to be the darkest. And a little bit of the pupil. I'm not gonna go over these like little highlights in the pupil that I made. I'm gonna go around those, not filling those in. Alright, so kind of lean this out a little bit like a little lash. And then the same to the other side. Darken that pupil. I'm gonna darken a little bit on the very corners of the crease, and then I'm also going to do the very corners very kind of lightly of right underneath that waterline. I'm kind of using makeupy terms. Alright. And then I'm gonna also just darken up these eyebrows a little bit because they kind of got lost in all this pencil layering. Okay, so next, you can already tell this face is definitely a lot more 3D and a lot more structured. Like, I can already see that there's a lot more depth compared to like with the very, very beginning where it was just kind of like smudges of pencil everywhere. You could definitely tell that there's a lot more, it looks a lot more realistic here, so I definitely think this is the right way to go if you're looking for more depth in your drawings. You just gotta keep layering up that pencil. Gotta study where your darks and lights are. And the more realistic you want your drawings, the less, what am I trying to say? The less line dependent you want to be. So you don't want to like, for example, there's not even a solid line around here. It's literally just all shadows right in here. And I mean, obviously the eyes are going to have lines and stuff, but you can even, you know, just use shadows and not actually depend on a solid line to make your drawings look more realistic. That's like the best way to go for realism in my opinion, so. But I really don't mind. But I'm also not an art teacher. I'm self-taught. I literally just taught myself everything, so I feel like a lot of my technique isn't correct. Alright, so I'm just, you know, doing what I did before, just blending out these shadows, making them a little softer. Normally I would spend a lot more time doing this and I'd probably use like some tissue paper, but for time's sake and just this just being a tutorial, or how I would personally do it, I don't even know if you can consider this a legit tutorial because it's just kind of my opinions, but normally I'd spend a little more time on it, but just for the sake, I'm just kind of gonna go with it. Alright, so I can still, I'm going back in with the number 2 pencil because I don't really want these to be dark, but I can still see there's like some more darkness right in here. And I mean, shading just takes a lot of practice. Like, it literally took me probably 3-4 years to teach myself how to do it correctly. But that wasn't like drawing every day to purposely get better. That was just me kind of drawing for fun. So I kind of naturally taught myself how to do it. But I feel like if you know, maybe go to art school or something, they could probably teach you properly how to do it faster. So don't worry, it probably won't take you 3 or 4 years. I'm not really wanting to make these areas dark. I just want there to be more pencil on the paper right in here. It just still looks a little off to me. I'm gonna go under here a little more. I mean, it definitely is a process. Like, I feel like a lot of people when they first start, you know, learning to shade and teaching themselves to shade, they don't really realize it's like a layering process. Like, you kind of, I mean, for me personally, I feel like it's more of a layering process. Like, I mean, different people have different styles, different ways of going about it, but I feel like I get the most realism and like, I don't know, I just prefer layering my shadows. I just feel like the effect of it is just so much more smooth and crisp. And like literally, it's like the more layers, the more realistic it's gonna get, so, you know, just take your time with your drawings. I would say for like a face like this, if I really wanted to make it look super detailed, I could probably spend 4 hours. 4 hours or more. I think I'm only probably working on this for maybe an hour, maybe even a little less, but it's definitely a process. Alright, so I know I kind of like was bashing lines and being line dependent a little bit ago, but I'm gonna do a line. I'm going to put a really strong, thick line around the chin just because I want it to pop, and I'm probably not going to do the hair because it's not really part of this tutorial that I'm wanting to do. Maybe I'll do like another part for hair. Depends. Depends if people are interested. Alright, I kind of want to do a little more. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking back at my reference photo and just seeing where I should put more shadows and where I should kind of leave it highlighted. You know, I'm just putting down little bits of pencil and then blending it in, so that's kind of how I'm doing it. Alrighty. A little bit over here, and I think I might call it good. So pretty much this, how I was doing it just now, is pretty much how I got the little sphere over here to be, you know, to have the depth and the smoothness. That's how I like pretty much achieved it. I just, you know, started off with like, I started off with pretty much just shading like this, and I just pretty much kept layering on the pencil a little bit darker each time, blending it out and smudging it out to get this sphere down here. And you kind of want to sculpt the shape of it. See how my shadows are circular around the sphere? And I just kept going and going and layering, and I left the little highlight here. You always kind of want to leave a highlight somewhere on your drawings. Well, it sort of depends on what you're drawing, but I find with skin and shapes and things like this, you know, it sort of makes it pop and it kind of gives it that dimension. So that's kind of what I did here. I left my lighter parts, the center of the forehead, down the nose, you know, cheeks, chin. Above the brows is always pretty much highlighted. The lips, the centers of the lips. I don't know if you can get a good look at everything here. But if I really wanted to make this even more realistic, I would just keep layering the shadows. Like, I'd just keep adding more pencil, but I think for time's sake, I think I'm satisfied with it where it is. So, yeah. Alright, I think that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like and subscribe, and leave me a comment down below on what you would like for me to see next. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.